Hey, this is Rob Jones with an audio software exclusive. So, the time is upon us, and a new version of Ableton Live is finally here. Since the private launch last week, I've been super keen to get my hands on a copy. And now, being in possession of a beta version, I thought it only fair to do a quick rundown, so the Producer Tech community can have a heads up on what to expect from yours truly. After watching an awesome presentation by Dennis DeSanti last week, there was one feature I was desperate to try. It's perhaps the most revolutionary new concept in this version of Live, and what he used to start things off, using something he hummed as the basis for his song. The feature introduces the ability to go from audio to MIDI, not in the same way as with previous versions, where you slice up samples, but literally through analysis of the audio's frequencies. To demonstrate this, I've got a nice Rhodes loop here, from the Loopmasters Farley sample pack. If I Control-click on it now, then I can choose Convert Harmony to New MIDI Track, after which I get a new MIDI track with a piano on it, playing the same chords from the loop. Pretty amazing stuff. And I can then go through some new sounds from the collection to change the instrument playing those chords. How about a guitar? Okay, maybe not that guitar. Let's try something mellower. So this is pretty revolutionary stuff already. Of course, I naturally wanted to push this to its limit, so I tested it quite thoroughly with an assortment of different samples to see how foolproof the new facility is. And there are some samples that are understandably harder to analyse. Take this synth loop, for example, which seems to have a fairly clear harmony. But Live throws in a few extra notes when analysing it, undoubtedly caused by the rich harmonic content, which actually produces a pretty nice jazzy version. As well as harmony, there's a Convert Melody to MIDI option for single monophonic phrases, which is similarly awesome. I converted a whole load of different samples from the DD Funk All-Stars Loopmasters pack to see how the software fared. As you'd expect, it did a much better job on sounds with a more distinct sense of pitch. In other words, with fewer harmonics or resonant overtones. Take this flute, for example, which has such a strong harmonic overtone that it's almost playing simultaneous octaves, which Live understandably found tricky to convert into a single melodic line. However, when I chose harmony instead, it actually produced a much more similar version. The one I was most blown away with, and will probably use the most myself, is the Convert Drums to MIDI facility. This is awesome. Take this drum loop that I might add to my mellow guitar phrase, for example. I like the groove, but I don't like any of the sounds. So I just convert it to a new MIDI track, and Live adds a drum rack to a track, and sequences the break for me, analysing the sample to work out exactly where all the hats, kicks and snares are, and then laying them out in a MIDI clip for me. Then, all I need to do is hot swap the drums with my own samples, and I've got my own break in the same style. It really couldn't be any easier. Another new feature I was really keen to try was the glue compressor, which is a brand new effect in Live 9. I'm going to set it up pretty heavily on my drum break now, so you can hear the massive difference it makes to the sound. I've got an EQ on there now too, which is picking out some key frequencies. And you'll notice there are a few changes here too. One of my favourites is the improved display, which can now be enlarged to give you a full-size view of the spectrum of the signal, so you have a more precise visual reference of what's going on. And this makes for easier editing here too. I can now edit multiple bands simultaneously by selecting them with the mouse, which is a nice new feature. There are also brand new filters here, where there's a super steep option for removing frequencies below or above the cutoff more severely. Sticking on improved displays then, let's go back to the guitar loop now and see what we can do to that. Here's something I think is very cool and is going to make sidechaining even easier to teach, and that's the new display on Compressor. I'm turning sidechaining on for the effect, and I'm selecting the kick as the sidechain source. Previously, all we had was the gain reduction meter to see how the level was being affected, but now we have this activity view, which shows us the results in a more linear fashion. Which is great once again for visualizing the effect that changing certain parameters like the compression envelope has on the signal. Another improvement to effects processing, and a much requested feature, is automation in the session view window. This is done via a new set of switches on the main control panel. The first arms the automation, and then the second starts recording it, after which any parameter changes you make get recorded directly into the clip edit window. The only other thing you need to select is whether to record onto all tracks, or just the ones that are record armed on the mixer, which is selected via an option in the preferences. Let's add a bass line to this then, by copying the chords over to a new MIDI track, and getting rid of all the notes bar the lowest ones. Then I can try out some of the new bass instruments that come in the new Live 9 library. So as you can see, there are some pretty cool features in Live 9 that speed up your workflow even more and allow for new creative possibilities. Other things I didn't mention are the new browser, which is a pretty big change, separating devices and presets into more distinct categories, like sounds, drums, effects, clips, and so on, to improve the organization of files. And there's also a preview feature for presets, as you just saw. And lastly, Max for Live is now included with Live 9, although not with my beta version unfortunately, so that'll have to wait. But that's a really cool addition, because it opens up the standard version of Live to a whole new world of possibilities, where any Live users can create new devices that everyone can share. So that's shown you the main updates in Live 9. I'll be going over things in more detail in the near future, as well as showing you the new hardware controller for Live, Push. So watch this space.